The story begins in the royal capital of Paluma, where demi-human races are discriminated against and forced into slavery. Only our protagonist, the merchant Banazza, treats them kindly. He even gives them money to have breakfast and coffee while waiting for the next shipment. Because of this, they are deeply grateful to Banazza and promise to work their hardest. While Banazza is chatting with Quinn, he is suddenly summoned to the magic kingdom of Clyrode as the 198th hero. Due to the long, drawn-out war against the Demon King's army, they have been following the prophecy, summoning individuals with the potential to become heroes from another world to fight against the Demon King's forces. Although Banazza insists that he is just a merchant and not a hero, they ignore him and proceed with an ability assessment. Those summoned from another world, like Banazza, start at level 1 and receive a divine blessing to compensate. These blessings grant abilities that ordinary humans could never attain, known as the revelation of the gods. At that moment, Banazza's status screen appears. Banazza is surprised that he can read the language of this world naturally. Meanwhile, the Beastkin girl beside him is in shock. Unable to believe her eyes, Banazza has no divine blessing at all. His stats are completely average, no different from a typical adult male. Seeing their disappointment, Banazza asks them to send him back to his original world, but no one pays attention to his words. By then, all eyes are on another summoned individual, a man whose power rivals that of legendary heroes. At level 1, all his stats are already maxed out at 999. This golden-haired hero glances at Banazza's status screen and immediately shows an expression of disdain. He knows he is the chosen hero, destined to save this world. Everyone focuses entirely on him, completely ignoring Banazza. A servant quickly runs off to inform the king. When the king hears the news, he is overjoyed and declares that the golden-haired man will be given the title of hero. Meanwhile, Banazza is left feeling dejected. As no one will listen to him, Banazza decides to meet the king later to request that he be sent back to his original world. However, to his dismay, he is told that the portal used to summon him has already closed and cannot be reopened. The fact that he cannot return is entirely the fault of this kingdom. As compensation, they grant him land in the Delavisa forest to the north, along with the privilege of living in this world. However, Banazza is strictly forbidden from revealing what happened. Immediately after, soldiers escort Banazza onto a carriage bound for Delavisa forest. The next morning, Banazza sticks his head out of the carriage to ask the coachman a question. The coachman refuses to speak, saying he was ordered not to talk to Banazza. As a skilled merchant, Banazza is not one to give up easily. After some negotiation, Banazza learns that in this world, there are no slave contracts between demi-humans and humans like in his old world. While demi-humans may receive lower wages, they are not considered slaves. Discrimination is minimal. People do not judge based on whether someone is human or demi-human. However, when Banazza asks about Delavisa forest, the coachman refuses to answer and shuts the carriage door. Banazza starts to feel that this world isn't so bad, despite the Demon King. At least there is no racial discrimination. Thus, Banazza embarks on a long journey. He tries to start conversations multiple times but is always ignored. After 20 days, they finally arrive at Delavisa forest. The coachman hands Banazza a magic pouch, a gift from the king. Inside, there is money and food to sustain him for a while. The coachman kindly warns Banazza to flee if he wants to survive. This area is crawling with the Demon King's forces. Once the coachman departs, Banazza checks the magic pouch's contents. Fortunately, its usage is no different from what he knew in his old world. Inside, he finds gold coins and various items. Banazza decides to take out a sword for protection, but suddenly, 3 slimes appear behind him. Thinking that slimes are harmless, Banazza turns around to leave. Unexpectedly, the slimes lunge at him. Fortunately, Banazza reacts just in time, otherwise, he would have been saying his final goodbyes. Suddenly, a system notification appears. Banazza has leveled up to level 2. All stats have become infinity. However, Banazza does not understand what this sideways number 8 means. The system also grants him the option to enable voice-guided instructions for easier use. Upon activating voice guidance, the system informs Banazza that he now has access to an immense number of magic spells, nearly making him lose his composure. Then, an alert appears. Warning! The magic pouch is enchanted with tracking magic, monster lure magic, and forced recall magic. Now Banazza understands. The pouch was the reason the slimes attacked him. And the weapons inside are all low-quality junk. Since the king was the one who provided these items, it means he deliberately wanted Banazza to die as soon as possible. At that moment, the system asks if Banazza would like to remove the applied enchantments. Of course, Banazza chooses to agree. Seeing how effortlessly the system dispels the magic, Banazza wonders what the original enchantments were meant for. He decides to explore the forest in search of a safe place. However, the system issues another warning. Delavisa Forest is heavily contaminated with magic essence. Magic essence is a substance in liquid or gaseous form, produced and dispersed by demons, which is highly harmful to humans. The system asks Banazza if he would like to use magic to purify the forest. The spell will consume 1/3 of his total mana. Since Banazza has no idea how much mana he has, he does not care and immediately agrees. And just like that, the entire forest is purified in the blink of an eye. By simply looking around, Banazza couldn't see any noticeable changes. But in the very next second, a flood of level-up notifications suddenly appeared, making Banazza's eyes widen in shock, his mouth agape. Meanwhile, back at the royal castle, the first princess was furious, calling the king heartless. Because of their mistake, the summoned hero candidate could no longer return to his original world. Not only that, but they had sent him to the Delavisa forest, where the Demon King's army was establishing a frontline base, essentially a death sentence. The king was about to respond when a mage suddenly ran in, reporting that traces of the supreme holy purification magic had been detected. Upon hearing this, the king was overjoyed, assuming that the one who cast such high-level magic was none other than the golden-haired hero currently on his way to defeat the Demon King. But in the very next moment, both the princess and the king were utterly stunned when the mage revealed that the purification magic had actually been cast in the northern Delavisa forest, nowhere near the southern route the hero had taken. Back in Delavisa forest, Banazza, overwhelmed by the endless notifications, had skyrocketed to level 367. He had no idea why he had gained so many levels without even defeating a single monster. After thinking it over, Banazza guessed that in this world, simply using magic could increase one's level. What confused Banazza even more was that the strange symbol on his stats remained unchanged despite his massive level increase. Unable to figure it out, he told the system to disable all level-up notifications. Then, he checked his remaining mana and found that it had already fully regenerated in an instant. Seeing this, Banazza assumed that his mana pool must be tiny, which was why it replenished so quickly. Setting that thought aside, Banazza was now unsure where to go. He was worried that even with his magic, he might not be able to purify the entire forest. And to make matters worse, he was also banned from entering the city. Hearing this, the system suggested he use transformation magic. Wanting to conceal his identity, Banazza agreed. When selecting gender, he jokingly chose female, leading to the birth of the capable and diligent female Banazza. Though his new form excited him, he quickly realized that keeping a male mindset in a female body could lead to problems. So, he told the system to switch him back to a male. The system then suggested using teleportation magic to move directly to the city below the castle. This was an ideal solution. Banazza gladly accepted, as walking there would take far too long. After teleporting, Banazza felt an overwhelming rush of excitement. In his previous world, only top-tier mages could use teleportation magic. A sudden thought struck him. Could he teleport back to his original world? But as expected, the attempt failed. With no other options, Banazza resigned himself to living in this world. If he was going to stay here, he needed to earn money first. He wondered if this world had any guilds. A merchant guild was likely out of the question since he knew no one in this place. But if there was an adventurer's guild, he could at least take on odd jobs to earn a living. At that moment, the system informed him that if he walked a bit further, he would reach the adventurer's guild. Upon arrival, the receptionist explained that adventurers were ranked based on their achievements. Higher ranks meant access to more difficult, higher-paying jobs. If he registered, He would also receive preparation fees, support money, and compensation benefits. Finding the system similar to his old world, Banazza agreed to register. To hide his identity, he signed up under the name Flyo, after the pet dog he had as a child. With the registration complete, Flyo's information was recorded on his new adventurer's card. While browsing for a suitable quest, Flyo overheard a girl asking a young man to escort her to Delavisa Forest. But he instantly refused. 2 others stepped in to explain. Rumors said that the Demon King's army was using that place as a base. So no one would take the job, no matter how much they were paid. It was safer to wait until the army had finished their subjugation efforts. But the girl's family lived near the Delavisa Forest. They couldn't afford to wait. Desperately, she begged them, but they coldly walked away. Seeing this, Flyo stepped in and offered to take her there using teleportation magic. He even generously refused payment. The other adventurers were stunned. They couldn't believe a mere boy like Flyo could use such a high-tier spell. A girl named Balarosa, a member of the Clyrode Knight Order, even pointed her sword at Flyo, demanding to know his true intentions, accusing him of lying about being able to use teleportation magic. Her fellow knights quickly gathered, pressuring him to confess the truth. Flyo realized that if he didn't clear their suspicions soon, the commotion might reach the palace. To put their doubts to rest, Flyo suggested that Balaros's group accompany them to Delavisa Forest. Shortly after, they all gathered in a secluded alleyway. Balarosa warned him that if he tried anything suspicious, she would deal with him immediately. Flyo told everyone to stand close together, then activated teleportation magic, transporting the entire group to Delavisa Forest. Upon arrival, everyone was utterly shocked. A mage among them, witnessing Flyo teleport such a long distance, assumed that he must be a supreme-class Grand Magus. Flyo immediately denied it, insisting that he was just a novice adventurer with some magic skills. Realizing their mistake, Balaros's group bowed and apologized for suspecting him of being a dangerous person. Feeling a little embarrassed, Flyo waved it off, saying it was fine. He was just glad they no longer doubted him. Seeing the young girl's astonished expression, Flyo asked if something was wrong. She explained that this forest was supposed to be covered in dense magic energy. Yet somehow, it had completely disappeared. Flyo was about to admit that it was his doing when the system suddenly flashed a warning. Speaking about purification magic to a demon is dangerous. Before he could process what was happening, Balarosa suddenly ordered Flyo to step back, raising her sword toward the girl. The other knights also assumed battle stances. It was then that Flyo realized they had discovered her true identity. The Adventurers Guild had already issued a warning about a suspicious girl requesting escorts to Delavisa Forest a few days ago. Wanting to enter a forest occupied by the Demon King's army was practically the same as admitting she was a demon herself. Seeing that she had been exposed, the girl stopped pretending. She revealed her name, Fenris, the younger sister of Fengarel, one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army. Fenris had been ordered to survey the area and deliver supplies, and now that she had been discovered, she intended to kill them all. Balaros's entire group collapsed almost instantly, overwhelmed by Fenris' magic energy. Only Flyo remained unaffected, which shocked Fenris. Intrigued, she decided that after disposing of the others, she would properly entertain him. Realizing that protecting 4 unconscious people while fleeing was impossible, Flyo immediately used teleportation magic to send them back to the city. Fenris was dumbfounded. She thought Flyo had lost his mind, choosing to stay behind and face her alone. Although he had no idea why he had been spared, Flyo refused to stand still and accept death. Determined to survive, he resolved to use every bit of magic he had to fight back.